Yeah, sure. You get your license.
You know, after a while, no, those are good jobs. Yeah. Come on, remember 2025. I was really glad, I was really glad I saw how well you guys made us. Yeah, it's good. So you got straight. And it's
About 10 seconds. All right, 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the August 21st, 2023 Credit River City Council meeting. We'll begin with approving or amending the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda tonight? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. We had a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have August 7th, 2023 council meeting minutes, the August 21st claims approval, and a change order for the upgrade to the South Passage wastewater system. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anybody'd like to pull and consider separately? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Abe.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as written. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address the concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss, but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak in open forum? Okay, hearing none, we'll close open forum and no presentations tonight. We'll move into public hearings. Tonight we've got ordinance 2023-05, an interim ordinance imposing a moratorium on cannabis businesses. Kathy, would you please introduce the subject?
Yes, tonight we are going back to talk about our recreational marijuana, and we'll also have on the agenda later the Roadhouse THC edible products. Just kind of as a refresher on this, this is the presentation we did at the July 5th City Council meeting, where we had the initial conversation about basically the two different marijuana pieces that we had going on. This background, the recreational marijuana was legalized by legislation that was passed this session, legalizing adult use cannabis, legalized possession, use, manufacturing, and sale of certain cannabinoid products in the state, created an Office of Cannabis Management, and personal possession and use went into effect on August 1st of 2023, with legal sales are expected to begin in January of 2025 after the Office of Cannabis Management is stood up. and has the regulatory structure in place for that one. The legislation did allow local governments to adopt an interim ordinance that provides for a moratorium on the cannabis business within inside their city limits and set up some guidelines for local governments on reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions that could be adopted. At the meeting in July, council directed us to come back with a interim ordinance for the moratorium on cannabis businesses within the city limits. And so what you have in front of you this evening with ordinance 2023-05 is a moratorium on cannabis businesses. It is an interim and will be in effect until January 1st of 2025, which is what the legislation adopted in 2023 allows. And at that point in time, between now and then, we'll watch what happens at the state and see where we want to go as far as regulations or anything additional that would take place after this January 2025 moratorium.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Any questions from council members before we open the public hearing?
Nope.
No, go ahead. Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody in the audience would like to comment on the proposed ordinance. Okay, see nobody looking like they want to comment. Kathy, have we received any written comments or anything on this one?
We did receive one written comment in regards to the ordinance, and it was in favor of implementing the interim ordinance moratorium.
Okay. With that, I would entertain the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. I'll second it.
All right, Jay, then Leroy to close the public hearing. Motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched the planning commission meeting last week, and I know there was a comment made about the license fee of $250, and I'm a little concerned about whether or not it actually would pay for the work to do the license. So I would like to amend that or suggest that we amend it to leave the license fee at $250 per calendar year, but also add a caveat to reimburse any costs associated with issuance of the license. So if there was background checks, things like that, that those things would be also added on to that.
So that's in the other ordinance.
Correct, that's
the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry, my
Yeah.
okay.
Hold your comment for that one.
Okay, I will.
So then, with the moratorium then, the 2023-05, again, any other comment or questions from council
No.
members? Otherwise,
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. So I've got a motion by Abe and a second by Leroy to approve ordinance 2023-05, an interim ordinance imposing a moratorium on cannabis businesses. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to general business, in a related ordinance 2023-04, regulating THC products. The planning commission held this public hearing back last Thursday, as Jay mentioned here earlier, and then recommended approval of that one.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Kathy, on this one that you want to introduce before we?
I was just going to cover and summarize, yes, the planning commission did recommend approval of it. They did note one minor change of, instead of notifying the council, notifying the city, that we did. I did make an administrative change in that compared to what was posted in the package. And that's on page 5 of the ordinance. Where it talks about the revocation or suspension, paragraph 3. It talks about after any such change in ownership or control, the licensee has notified the council of the change in ownership and just swapped out that word council for the word city. So we're not notifying the council, the body of the council, they notify us, and we'll make sure council is informed and wrapped into that one. So one minor administrative change that came out of some comments that were made at the planning commission, from what was posted in the agenda packet, would be the recommended modification there. And then, yes, the planning commission did have conversation about the fee, and that we left the fee, they didn't make a recommendation on a dollar amount to change it to. We do have a $250 per year. You do see in some cities that they will pay, say it's the $250, but then they also have fees for like $100 for the background check that you pay in addition to the $250 fee. So doing something of that nature would be something we could look at. Increasing the fee if we wanted to. We could add in the fact that this is the licensing fee, but there's also a background check fee of, say, $150, somewhere around there, to cover that one. So that would be more of your initial application where you would pay that fee. But that is, one of the discussions and that came out of the planning commission meeting. If council wants to make that change, the ordinance could be basically, you would just make the motion to approve the ordinance with amended to do that, and we would just get that reformatted up for signatures after the fact.
So I would,
Okay.
I would suggest that we could issue it and just say the cost of the license of $250 and reimbursement of any costs or fees associated with that, which just leaves it open.
So my suggestion, I was thinking about this as I was watching the discussion at the planning commission is, can we make this refer to our fee ordinance? And then put that fee in our fee ordinance so that it doesn't get buried in an ordinance
There you go.
here and forgotten. And then we can make it, whatever, right, at that point. And that way, when we review it every year, and when it comes up, we can decide, if it changes and, we start looking at neighboring cities and they're doing 500 or 750 or whatever, we can, be in that same realm or something like that.
Okay.
I think that would make more sense, because then here in the ordinance, it gets forgotten, right?
Yeah.
It gets buried and.
The purpose is to basically cover the cost of issuing it, but we certainly don't want to, we don't want to make money on it. We can't, but we don't want to lose money on it either.
Right. So then if we were to take that route, then we would have to have a modification of our fee ordinance. Probably at our next council meeting.
Right.
To have that prepared and ready to go. So I think that, in that we should take a look at that, at what a true cost of processing something like this would be. Staff time, background check, whatever else.
You might have to visit the site.
Yeah, so, right, exactly. There's pieces to it that, would come into play there and probably change over time, which is why I think having the fee ordinance would be a better spot for it.
Yeah, so to do that, we would just change that one sentence there. Instead of saying the annual fee for the THC license shall be $250 per calendar year. We would just say the annual fee for the THC license would be set, by the fee ordinance on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And that would be, we would modify this language for it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions on the proposed ordinance? No.
I do have a few other,
Yeah.
on that topic, then it says, down below. License fees, for licenses issued for part of a year shall be prorated. But if we're gonna tack on those extra additional fees, we might wanna put some language in there to say that. The fee itself will be prorated, but the additional costs or whatever.
Yeah, if we break it up into separate, maybe that makes sense, right? So, makes sense to have a license fee and then just a separate background check fee and whatever else, because those background check fees might apply to other licenses in the future for other things. So then we have that flat fee. We know what that's going to be. We just know that when you do this one, it also includes this, and this.
Yeah, but I don't think we want to prorate that back.
No.
Okay,
Those pieces, that's why I say those ones would be separate from the license fee.
gotcha.
Could I ask why we would even prorate? I mean, it's basically set up for the cost of what we're doing, so why would we even prorate? No, it's just, it's not a big
It's not-
fee to start with.
No,
anyway.
it's not a big dollar.
So I
number,
think we
so
should
it's-
just leave it as it is. I think we should
Makes
just
it
strike
easier.
the prorate.
Makes it easier. Yeah,
Makes sense.
Right. Why don't we strike that?
okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have something, good on our order. It's something we talked about at the meeting on Thursday, why we dropped the 250 discussion. It was because we.
Bill, if you're gonna talk though, I would ask you to just step up to the podium though. Just let me check with Abe because Abe said he had a couple questions and then Bill, I will take your comment on this one.
All right, page. Don't worry, it's not many.
Okay.
Page 6, section 4A, D, A2D. Vendors selling primary vitamins, health related supplements and skincare products. Is there legislation that bound us to those? Because if so, I'd like to say non-veterinarian.
So
Because otherwise now we've got a veterinarian selling THC because they have vitamins.
and veterinarians, this is for, they can sell for animals, for human and animal consumption. So they may want to, I guess, for if they're,
Do we want that?
Oh, that's some of the businesses that we do have.
This is one, yes.
I don't think we should, but
there's nothing that binds those businesses, that's what we've written into it to narrow it down, so you don't get to, yeah, with the industrial and commercial zoning, you avoid the home occupancy, argument there. But that's kind of our narrowing of it that we've done, it's not a requirement or set by statute.
okay. Otherwise, I think we need to define what primarily is because they sell vitamins and health related supplements. But is that primary? I mean, I guess my question is, we do have a veterinarian. Do I want to have THC? So I've got people going to a veterinarian for THC for human. I think seems a little odd.
Don't know if human consumption ones and animal consumption ones are the same.
Hey, Bob, I see Attorney Groupie is on. Any opinion on that thought process?
I guess I'm trying. Abe, can I ask you, what change did you want to see to section 4A to D?
Yeah, putting non-veterinarian in there, or used by humans or something like that, we're classifying specifically, as we're targeting THC, we're really talking about if you're distributing THC, it's going to be consumed by people. Let's make sure it's businesses that are actually dealing human products instead of animal product.
Okay, so you would like to see that added to the, which I don't believe there's any prohibition on adding that language in there, if that's the will of the council.
I didn't
catch that. Bob, can you repeat that, please?
Yes, I don't believe there's any restriction on adding that language to the ordinance, if that's the will of the council.
Okay. Yeah, so he said he doesn't believe there's any restriction to that, so
I kind of agree with Dave on that.
I'm fine with it too, if you want to just, add in, vendors selling, primarily vitamins, health related supplements to humans or something like that,
Yeah,
not calling out specifically that
Right.
business, but
yeah.
I think that works.
So vendors selling primary vitamins, health related supplements and skincare products that are primarily used by humans. Or something of that nature.
Yeah,
Primarily still does leave quite a bit of ambiguity.
there is, right?
I think that.
I think the risk is probably low to begin with, but I think, putting that statement in there, I think moves it even lower, that there's even any chance that somebody's gonna work around that one. Okay, what else you got?
Page 7, section 4A5. First full sentence, distance is to be measured from the closest point of the property, the school. We're talking about in that place, daycares, residential treatment facility or attraction. So I think we should just change that word from school to facility or structure or something of that nature instead of school.
So you're just talking about that last sentence?
Yeah, I'm talking about the word school, basically.
Right.
We're at that point not talking about schools in five,
Just-
just
Right,
changing that word.
just. Okay, to include all the items listed above, yep,
Yeah. I don't think that one's very challenging.
no,
Also on page 7, section B, number 3. I'd like to propose instead of 5 years, to put that to 10 years. So if you've been convicted for any local law, ordinance, provision or other regulation relating to the licensed products, you have to have 10 years.
That, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to check the statute just to make sure there's no limitations on that.
okay. If it's fine with, Bob checks it and we're fine with it, I'm fine with it. If not, we're not. I think we can probably still pass the ordinance contingent upon attorney review at that point.
Okay,
For that-
I was
for
just
that
gonna
one.
ask how we did it. so.
Yeah,
And my last one is page 8. I'd like to add a section 8 under B. So this is the grounds for denial. One of the things I was reading is that we have the ability to have at least one per 12,500, but there's no place for ground for denial. If we do want to keep it at 1 per 12,500. So
But that is,
go ahead, Bob.
that 1 per 12,500 relates to, I believe, that the cannabis business. This is the low dose section. So that provision, state law doesn't apply to this
Okay.
type of low dose.
Yep,
okay,
makes sense.
then
That
that's,
was when it comes back around again in 2025.
yeah, we'll wanna.
Yeah. I think the other thing to remember on that particular number, when we were talking about this earlier, is that there's 2 levels to that, right? The county and then the city. If the county already has 1 per, 12,500, then the cities can choose that, they don't need to, if they don't meet that, right? So, if not, then we probably don't have a choice in that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that was easy. Planning Commissioner Chairman Markert, if you mind step into the podium, turn the microphone on and clarify us on that position on the fee.
Kathy, keep me honest here, but I thought one other reason why we decided not to touch the fee was the fact that this was only going to last until the end of this year, and at that time, the state of Minnesota would do all the processing for issuing licenses. That was another reason why we decided not to do anything, and we didn't think we were going to have any activity between now and the end of the year. So I just wanted to add that too, because I had questioned the 250 was too low.
Yeah.
And I never give up money if I don't have to, but I didn't think it was an issue given that Minnesota, the state of Minnesota is going to be issuing the licenses, not the city. So, and the
Sure.
background checks and all that.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Bill, for the clarification.
And I did one clarification off that, this will basically govern until January 2025, so we've got about a year and a half on it. January 2025, when they stand up, that's the expectation for having Office of Cannabis Management operational. At that point in time, all the licensing, including the low dose, will go through Office of Cannabis Management, so that will kind of overrun this ordinance, and we'll be modifying our ordinances to then accommodate the structure and the regulation that they're putting together at the state level. So it will be changing, but this gets us through really until January 2025,
Mhm.
which is the expectation at this point in time.
Just a quick question on that though. Would there still be an opportunity for us to further license it in addition to the state?
Right now,
At
right now,
that
the
point?
state, the 2023, the legislation, basically takes it all to the state. We don't have an additional licensing. Now we have a role. The legislation kind of lays out a role for the local governments where they get the licensing, they send it down for our review and input and zoning implications on it. And so it will go from a licensing structure. The licensing structure will be at the state. We'll have the zoning and the regulatory kind of structure. So within the distance to the schools and those kinds of
Right.
things, and where in our zoning, commercial, industrial, those types of things we can work with and we can keep, but the licensing would go through the state.
Well, maybe this question isn't relevant to that, but should we wind up with a state regulated facility that is undesirable to us? And what recourse do we have if we can't revoke a license?
I think there's stuff within the structure of the legislation. We've got a lot. The state has a lot to figure out, which is why we're doing
Right.
the moratorium on the cannabis business. Because the state has a whole lot to figure out before we can even begin to understand what we want to do more, to do the zoning and everything. They regulate and license a business, then it has to fit within our zoning before they can actually operate, implement that business here within Credit River. So you'll have some kind of piece on there. I know there was some language in there in regards to enforcement and complaints and back and forth, but what does any of that look like and what levels?
We don't know yet.
We don't
So
know,
we get it,
so,
we get it.
yeah,
So
so we gotta kind of wait and see and have the moratorium in place until we can figure out more, and then we can look at what we need to implement on our side to kind of balance and, counter and work with the states.
Sounds like our biggest opportunity is gonna be zoning,
Yes.
allowed use in what zoning districts,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Good. Another-
Yeah, so maybe to follow up on that, so if we go back and look at these sections, I was trying to. Make some modifications to, in essence, what we're saying in January of 2025. Everything we just put in there is now ripped out and it's all state. Determining the licensing and grounds for
Yes.
denial.
Yes. So the grounds for denial of the license, that will then be on the state, ours will be on the zoning of allowing it within the zoning. So when we look at the eligible businesses, the zonings or eligible businesses, probably best, but the 100 feet and the 500 feet and 1,000 feet on distances, commercial, industrial, those types of things, that will still remain
Mhm.
things that we can do.
Regardless of how long a period is, I think all of those are good changes. I think we should make them
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm still good with the changes. And again, if even if it's a year and a half, it's a year and a half and we can revisit it, but at least we have the start and the perspective of, where we stand for now and we're to control it as long as we can and.
It also sets a precedent for
Yeah.
our zoning, for future zoning as well.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? So if that's the case, I would take a motion to approve ordinance 2023-04.
So moved.
Okay, I'm gonna say upon attorney review at the end of all that, so that we can review that one line and make sure that we're okay with that. So Jay, you're still good with that?
Yep.
Okay,
And Jay, is that part of your motion also for the amendments that you've discussed?
Yes.
okay. So we've got a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. So we've got a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2023-04 regulating THC products with the noted changes and contingent upon attorney review. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to general business, 6.2. Kathy,
Right, this is the council vacancy. At the last meeting, council asked staff to talk to the candidates from the 2022 election to determine their interest in being appointed to the position and willingness to serve out the remainder of the term through 2024 when the position is up for re-election. I have made contacts with the candidates, Andrew Stevens. I did have a discussion with him and he has declined interest in being appointed to the position. Bob. That's the name the right way. He has also declined interest in the appointment and serving on the council. My information or my contact with Paul Doles is he was willing to serve. And then Greg Worthen was the final candidate on the list. And I was not able to reach him via phone, and I did send an email and I have not heard back from him. So it's kind of the summary of the communications I've had with him. So now, council, you know, have the discussion. You can appoint somebody this evening, or determine the options are still out there that, as we discussed before, and we can go back over any of that if council desires. I have that presentation. Kind of pull back up and review. If you have any further questions?
okay. Thank you, Kathy. You know, I think I'll add to that a little bit that in speaking with Paul Doles, is he was also kind of hesitant and not necessarily ready to volunteer to do this as well. So I think that brings us back to through the list of additional people that are on the ballot, back to square one. A thought might be we could do a short application period, maybe for a week or so, and find out people who are interested.
We scared them off last week, huh?
Wow.
I did receive a phone call this morning from another person that was interested.
Is that Brad?
Yeah,
I talked to Brad as well.
Yeah.
Brad's got a lot of experience.
he does.
He does. I talked to Brad for a long time this afternoon.
Okay.
He said he was willing to do it.
Okay.
It's just a matter of how do you want to go about the process? That's an option, right?
It is.
This is an option. You can do it that way. We can do it that way.
All it says in the revisor is that we can appoint. And in the basis of the tie, the mayor breaks the tie.
Yeah.
And can choose accordingly. So there are no other rules.
Right.
I don't know, in fairness, do we want to open it back up? Because we did kind of publicly state that we were going to go by the election. Do we want to open it up for a week and take some applications, or, you know, at the same time, we could just appoint?
Right. I think, you know, timing is certainly of essence. As we roll into, you know, budget season, But I also don't want to, we gotta make the right choice too.
Mhm.
If we were to do a application process. Let's just think that through, just. Take applications for, call it 5 or 7 days. Then what do we do with them?
You can't discuss it until the next one, and you've got to, we're stretching it out.
Well,
2 months.
you have an opportunity, you could do. You could have a committee. Review those, maybe talk to some of the candidates that want to, and have a recommendation by the next meeting. There's probably just enough time, and that would have to be boom, boom, boom. So, so schedules would have to be, whoever is on this committee would have to have some pretty flexible schedules over the next 2 weeks.
What are your thoughts, Dave?
I can't.
You couldn't be
I
on the
couldn't be on
committee,
that committee.
right?
Well, I can't either. Not because of the timing. You got it coming up and
Yeah,
some other stuff. And already committed to,
You have Labor Day weekend.
In the middle of it all.
all
Yeah.
this, so you do have a later meeting, you do have Labor Day weekend.
right.
That timeline, so just making sure that's known in your planning factors as you discussed.
I have a really short list, 2 people that I would consider at this point.
Okay.
One you and I both currently talk to,
Mhm.
the other one sitting in this room.
Chat with him, he called me today too, so.
So did I.
I was gonna say, did he talk to you too?
My first question would be having to do with the lake burial.
Oh, yeah. He did.
He did. He let me know about his time working on the light rail for a long time, yeah.
But,
Question for you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is there any limitations on if we did open it up to an application process, is there any time limit that we would have to allow from a public announcement period, anything of that nature? It could literally be,
According to the state statutes, there
Right.
there are no.
No
limits.
approval.
7 days or 5 days.
Yeah,
Reply to it.
so if we do try to condense this down into a very short window, what's the likelihood of those that may not be listening right now even hear about it? Or on, I suppose if you're on the email thread, you're probably not paying that much attention to government anyways. My only question, fear would be, I was out on vacation last week. I get an email, I would have missed it. And I do think time is of the essence, so. I'm pretty torn on how to do it well. But yet also fill it. Quickly enough.
so just look at the calendar. Thinking this through, we could stand up, I could stand up an application on the website tonight. We can push it out. On email and social tonight. Take applications due next Monday. That gives us 4 days that following week to try to talk to anybody who applies. And have a recommendation, then now the meeting's not till Wednesday the 6th. So we have a couple extra days in there. So it can be a little flexible.
Throw it in the paper.
It's tight, but it, again, so that, the other option is you pick somebody out of the crowd.
Mr. Mayor, sorry. Could I just offer, or could we maybe reopen public forum for real quick comment on this? If there's anybody that'd like to comment?
I don't know, we need to open the public forum, we can legitimately take comment without opening the
sure.
public forum,
All right.
but,
But we want to do it from the mics.
yeah, Kathy, if you do want to comment, I do, ask you to come up to
Okay.
the podium, state your name and, turn the microphone on, please, if you would, just hold the square button for a second. There you go, you're good.
Kathy Haw, 17570 Murphy Lake Boulevard. My question is for Jake. You just said you had it narrowed down to 2 people, and apparently it's some Brad that you've all 3 talked to. And then you said the other person's in this room. So who is that?
Bill Marker.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Can I speak to?
Sure.
Yes, you can speak.
Just so everyone knows, I did give you my intention to apply if you were going to do an appointment. And I did that the day that it was announced publicly. So I'm very interested. I can do it tonight after this meeting. We can interview. I don't need a week to prepare. And so and my calendar is flexible. So whenever you need me to be here to interview, I will.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the clarification. All right, since I did open public comment, is there anybody else who wants to comment? Okay, well, which way are we gonna go?
I have no objections saying it.
We have to get a coin out, flip it?
Maybe, I don't know.
Don't want to get to that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Leroy.
Bill did, the night we discussed all this, did make his intentions known,
Yeah.
so. We don't want to screw around dragging this out, I would be in favor
Okay.
of,
This is your only this is your last exception.
Okay,
Kathy.
so what's going on that our planning commission people are wanting to leave the planning commission and sit on the city council when,
I can answer that too.
that'd be great.
You know, I will say one thing, it is kind of a natural progression for a lot of people that want to get involved in this to start with.
Commission is so young.
Actually, Kathy, it's not that young. I've been on the planning commission for 2 years now. And I go to all the city council meetings. I'm the chair of the planning commission. I didn't run for city council in November because I was running for school board and I can't run for 2 public or, public offices. So that's the reason why I didn't run for city council. I very much am in tune with what's going on in the city. That's why I'm interested in running for city council, not to get off the planning commission, but to get on the city council.
And clarification, it is allowed to simultaneously run on, to be on planning commission and being on council at the same time. In our ordinance, that is okay. So, if we were to choose Bill could do both until his term at planning commission ends at the end of this year.
I'd be happy to do that too.
Thank you. Okay.
That ups the ante.
So Leroy, are you making a motion then?
I'm making a motion to appoint Bill to the vacancy.
Okay. We got a motion to appoint Bill Marker to the council vacancy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jay Seiderbach is second. So I've got a motion and a second to appoint Bill Marker to the council vacancy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Bill. So we appreciate that. As soon as we adjourn, Kathy will swear you in and then you can have a seat with us for the workshop. And you'll find out what you got yourself into. It's all good. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. All right. Staff and council member reports. Does anybody have anything for the group tonight?
Go ahead.
Just one question. Did we get feedback from planning commission and city council members for the workshop dates?
I still have it out there. I don't have responses from everybody yet.
Okay.
Still working on it.
Okay.
Oh, just called
Doodle?
just that we're gonna start on Pharisee Lane and Clary Lake, Clary Place, culvert cleaning. And
Is that this week they're gonna start?
Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
Yep.
So, as we talked before the meeting, we'll put out some notifications, email and social. To let those residents know that they'll see that start to happen.
And then the tree, and also that the trees got trimmed on Normandale and 195th, so the site should be better and whatever. I hope.
Speaking of trees, there was one unlucky person last Saturday driving down 170th Street that a tree fell and hit their truck while they were driving down the street.
Wow.
Yeah. Totaled the truck. They were all okay, but
I almost gave your number out to the guy. It was on right away. It was in his property.
yeah. I think about the timing that had to be involved there, the timing that had to be involved to be just driving down the street right as that thing fell. Yeah. Crazy.
Out of town, they called, I'm like, I can't really do anything from South Dakota.
Yeah. Well, and
I do know a guy.
our tree contractor was also unavailable that night, so, yeah. All right, did you have anything, Jay? No? All right, well, if we want to adjourn,
Make that motion.
thank you, Abe.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion and second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion